Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun. The topic we'll be looking at this evening is managing trade union relations and negotiations. And we are privileged to have with us for the first time of multiple series, Efe Orero, and I would like to read her profile very quickly. And please pay attention, because even from people's profile, you learn and you get some insight and nugget. Efe is a certified and experienced human resource management professional with proven proficiency in managing people matters for business advantage. She is currently the senior manager of the human resource department for Promasidor Nigeria Limited. Promasidor Nigeria Limited is one of the biggest manufacturing companies in Nigeria, with brands such as Cowbell Milk, Twisco Milksy, Loyal Milk, Cremella, and Onga Seasoning. If you don't have Promasidor products in your house, check again. I'm tempted to say, please, can you log off this meeting right now? I'm not joking. Okay, that's a joke anyway, but you should have. So go to the store after now and flood your house, your apartment with Promasidor products. If it's responsible for ensuring the HR business partners are effective while ensuring proactive engagement strategies with C-level stakeholders. She's also responsible for managing relationships and negotiations with trade union leaders, developing and executing employee engagement programs, and pulse survey actions to improve productivity and boost employee satisfaction. Under her leadership, the company has received recognition and awards for excellence in HR management. Before this role, she was lead HR consultant for the HR services for a consulting firm in Nigeria, providing HR solutions, all right, to established oil and gas firms, and also assistant HR manager at May One and Equinix Company, managing HR matters in Nigeria, Ivory Coast, and Ghana. She has over 17 years quality experience in people management. If she has a wealth of knowledge and expertise as a certified HR management practitioner with expertise not limited to performance management, leadership skills development, training, talent management, and organizational development. She started her own company, HR Work, in 2019, where she provides HR consultancy service to small business. Small is relative anyway. So if you're a big business, please bring it. She will provide services for you, so you know. The company has worked successfully with over 10 startup firms in different industries, and currently sponsors already existing businesses that do not have any HR department. In other words, retainership, that kind of thing plus more. If he holds a first degree in secretarial administration from Rivers State University of Science, this is not part of it, but you need a river spirit to be a strong union person. Don't quote me. I'm just telling you, like a weekly-like anointing. If there's anything like that, if he didn't he didn't. But don't worry, this training, we impute it in you, so it will day, so you can handle negotiations with union very professional. Don't mind me, I can be playful if I'm in the mood. All right, so where did I stop? All right, she also has a Master's of Science in Human Resource Management from University of Wales, UK. All right, that's in the abroad. If you hold certifications in strategic HR metrics, HR data analyst, and HR analytics leader from the HR Academy, Netherlands. She's an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, a global professional in human resource certification, holder of the HRCI USA, the highest global HR certification for HR practitioners. If you enjoy contributing to HR and management issues, she's deeply passionate about providing support to career professionals and supporting mothers who are unable to pay their children's medical bills. She's a devout Christian and an active member of the Christ Church Parish, RCCG Bagada. She is married to Joshua and they are blessed with a son and daughter. Ladies and gentlemen, just so you know how committed Ife is when she decided to support us by facilitating training webinars on HR mentorship. She committed to 3 sessions at once. This is the first of 3. Please stay on standby. Ladies and gentlemen, excited, elated to bring to the table let's welcome with the appropriate emojis and emoticons. Comrade Face, solidarity forever. You have the floor, ma.
Workers. Everybody, so nice to be here. Thank you so much, Yemi, for this platform. Thank you so much. So, how is everyone doing? How's your weekend? You can just drop a chat. How's your weekend doing? It's going fine, it's busy. I'm resting, I'm not resting. Please, can everyone hear me? I just need to be sure.
Yes,
If
we
everyone...
can.
Perfect. All right. Fine. Rachel says fine. That's good. Mine started off a bit busy. Weekend is great. Thank you. So everyone is fine. So we're going to be going through. It's raining in Asaba. Showers of blessing. Showers of blessing. Thank you. Weekend is restful. Fantastic. So great. So how many of us here work in unionized environment? So if you work in an organization that has a full trade union, so if you do, you can just say, I do. If you don't, I don't. So that I just have an idea of, okay, you do, Ijoma. Okay. We did here. Okay. All right. So today we're going to be sharing. Okay, I don't. We have a JCC instead. Okay. Okay, I don't. So you might not today, but tomorrow, you might end up somewhere where it's unionized. So we'll all learn together. I'll learn from you, you learn from me, we'll learn together. So most times when we say trade union, the first thing that comes to people's mind is strike. They want to go on strike and all that. So it's usually associated with that. But really, it's really beyond strike and beyond all of that. So we're going to be learning today, like I said, just looking at, as HR professionals, how do we manage, because they are our partners and their stakeholders, they are the body of your employees in the workplace. So how do we have a fruitful relationship with the union? That's really what we're going to be looking at today. How do we get to, work with them in such a way that is productive? How do we share knowledge with them? How do we get to a stage where it's both win-win for both sides? So that's what we'll really just be looking at today. So let's get it on. Okay. Sorry, I might be facing up because I have another screen where it's... So we'll skip this because Yemi has already done that. So today we're just going to be looking at understanding what trade union is. When we say trade union, what does it mean? We'll be looking at how we can build positive relationships with them. How do you prepare for negotiations? Because more than half of the time, if you're in a unionized environment or if you're working with union, you're going to be carrying out negotiations. You're going to be negotiating with them, whether formally or informally. So it's important that we have an idea of how we go about it. And throughout the session, I will always try and bring in my practical experience because I feel those are one of the best ways that we can learn together. So if I bring in some practical examples, and if anyone has something to share, you can just raise a show of hand and we can also hear from you. Conducting successful negotiations, which is part of negotiations, and managing conflicts, because you might go through all the tips that I might share today and still end up having conflict. It might not always end up smoothly, and that's the reality of things. I've had situations, even as I'm sharing, where our office was locked up, even after all the partnership and everything. So when you get to that point, what do you do? Because you might get to that point. So we'll look at that as well. And what are the trends that as HR people we should then look out for in terms of trade union relationships. So at the end of today, what do we really want to get? At the end of this session, we should be able to get out some objectives. And one is that we should be able to understand what trade unions are in Nigeria. So um, what do they mean? We should have an idea at the end of this session. How do we build and maintain positive relationships with trade unions? That's also one of the objectives that we should get at the end of the session. So we will go back and check at the end of this session if we met this or not. How do we conduct successful negotiations? That we also need to look at. And what do we do if conflicts are not managed properly? When we get there, what do we need to do? So we'll also look at that as well. So here you can see these are different situations, it's not these are some of the impacts of working in a unionized environment. You're going to have all sorts. These I just picked up pictures from the internet at different instances. These are different companies, just random companies I picked up at the internet where their union has either locked the gate. They normally refer to it as picketing. So they will decide to go to an office and say that office is not going to work today, and you have unions from other branches because they work together. You have unions from other organizations also coming to that company to stand in front and sort of picket. So it happens. These are from the news. I just picked this randomly at different years just to show you that these things happen. So as HR professionals, you're working in a unionized environment. You might experience one of these things where they will come and picket for one reason or the other. It's different things. Sometimes they do for large national issues, like you have the one that they picked up when the tariffs for electricity was raised. They came together to fight for that cause. So it's not, most of the time they're doing it from a good place. They're doing it to protect their workers. They're doing it from a good place. And also you can see what the impact is. You can see Mabisco is I think it's a biscuit company, and they were shut down for a couple of days. They had some union issues on a shutdown, and they said they lost 30 million, just to show the impact of what happens if you're not able to manage the relationship productively, or if you're not able to manage that partnership with your branch union. There is some impact to the business. I remember when we were shut down for 3 days in December. December is like the peak period. That's when people are shopping. That's where there's a lot, and they shut down. And what was it for? It was PIP. We had just finished the PIP session, and we had to let them go. The staff weren't improving, but they were members of the union, and they said, no, we can't just let the people go. We should look for another department to put them. So they are protecting their workers, but at the end of the day, you have a policy on performance, and you can't have someone who is not performing well, and you say the person has to be placed in another department. So those things sort of happen, and they go and that. So in Nigeria, 1 day strike by all workers was estimated to cost the country approximately 149 billion lost in oil revenue, just by the impact of having the place shut down, or your company shut down, or something happened due to union matters. So that's just to kick off the conversation. Now let's see, what are trade unions? So as we mentioned before, it's just an organized association of workers. So it's workers who have come together to form a body. So they're organized, highly organized, and they could come in form of a similar profession. Like you could have the teachers, so teachers come together. You could have a manufacturing association of Nigeria. So they just come together under a similar umbrella. And what they really do is just to protect their rights and to protect their interests. That's their main common goal. So regardless whether it's for ASU is a trade union, which is for lecturers. So whether it's for ASU or it's for, manufacturing or whatever industry, the main objective is really that they just want to protect their members' interest. So trade union didn't start today. It's been there forever, but in different forms. It's now very organized and very structured. But long before now, it was just a couple of people, they come together, industrial revolution. But post-independence in Nigeria, if we bring it home to Nigeria, then we began to see, after 1960, we began to see how unionism was now beginning to get more structured, and it was now beginning to get really more formal. And in Nigeria as well, the structure is such that we have two main bodies. We have NLC, which we are very familiar with. Under NLC, you have a lot of other groups, other professional groups under NLC. And then we have TUC, which is the Trade Union Congress. So there's no particular law of what decides where a company could fall in, these are just the two main bodies, and you have different groups of companies. But under TUC, you have more professionals under TUC, but under NLC, you still have professionals there. So it's a mix of both at the end of the day, but just TUC has more of professional bodies as against NLC that has both. I think that's just one major difference. And then union involvement, it began to involve labor laws. They are very conversant with labor laws, even international ILO standards. Sometimes my branch will come and they will be, you have the executives quoting ILO standards for you. That's not what happened. I'm like, you guys calm down. So they are very knowledgeable. So as HR people, you need to really know. Because when you're interacting with them, so that they don't bamboozle you, and quote things for you, and then you're lost. So establishment of government agencies for labor relations. They began to have employer associations, as we said. Then we began to evolve where we now have collective bargaining agreements. So collective bargaining is just where the union decides to come together to do an agreement that will cover for everybody. So it's not just for one person. Like use the minimum wage, for example, where NLC, TUC, they came together and were discussing with the government to say, minimum wage has to be so amount, so that was collective bargaining. In my industry, which is the food and beverage industry, we have that as well. So every 2 years, we're in that situation where they collectively agree what the salary increase should be, the minimum salary increase any company should do for their members. And you have to see, and once it's signed, you have to stick by it. So we have the employers, we have the Food and Beverage Employers Association. That's the employers' own union, if I put it that way. That's our own union group. So that group stands on behalf of all the employers, negotiating with the union in food and beverages. We have two major ones, negotiating with them collectively, and then they communicate that for the next 2 years, this is the minimum salary increase any company must give annually. And then after another 2 years, they go again, meet again, agree. So that's collective bargaining. So it wasn't there before, but as it began to evolve, these are just some of the things that have now come in. And really their purpose, as I said before, the main purpose is really to protect the interests of their members. So they are not bad, So because sometimes when people say union, it comes off like negative because you know them for strike, you know them for strike, you know them for, oh, they are coming to fight and all of that. But they're actually coming for, it's just the approach. So it's good intention, but the approach sometimes that might seem like, it's not, really nice. But they are coming for a good cause. And sometimes it helps to put organizations in check because when you have those union environments, then the employers then know that, they must do certain things. So it puts employers on their toes. So there are the cons and the pros, when it comes to unionism. So they are not entirely. I don't want us to look at them as union, and really bad, but they just have to be managed in a very good way. So they safeguard the interests of their workers and just ensure that treatment is fair. So what are the roles and responsibilities of union representatives? So what usually happens is that they will have their national body, and then in each company, if your company is then unionized, then in each company they will have their branch ESCOs. And I just also want to mention that according to labor law, as HR people, I want to believe that we are conversant. So if you go through labor law, it is actually the right of an employee to belong to a union. It is their right. So it's actually wrong for an employer to insist that there should be no union in their company. It is actually illegal because according to the law, every worker has the right to belong to a union. So it is the worker's right to belong to a union, really. So So the roles and responsibilities of union, advocacy for members. So that's one major thing that they do. They represent their members. They will advocate for them. They will push for them. They want this for them. They want this for their people, and all of that. And they speak on behalf of their members, which are our employees. They negotiate with management. So the ESCOs, the executives of each branch, they are the ones that HR interfaces with. So in my organization, for example, we interface with the ESCOs on behalf of the people. So when they come, they're coming with the voice of the people. Most times, sometimes I dare say that is the executive personal interest that you might portray. So, but if you're sensitive, you might be able to notice that, are you sure it's your people that sent you, or this is for you, and all of that. So, but majority of the time, they're speaking on behalf of what their people, want. And then they come because everybody can't come and negotiate with management. So they come on behalf of the employees, and they address workplace issues. So, sometimes they come and say, oh, they noticed that, oh, they went to this office, the AC is very hot. Even as little as that, they will come to HR and say, oh, they went to one office and their ACs are not working, our people are working. And then the way they will stress it, you think that these people must be roasting. It's, the place was so hot, our members are suffering, our members are so they're very passionate about speaking. So they speak on even very little issues, as well as this is not working. Oh, the locker room where their members are changing is not conducive, the place is hot, we need 4 ACs. So they address workplace issues. But you would have to, as HR, you need to be able to know how to work with them, to what to respond to, what not to respond to, and just how to guide. So as we progress, we'll discuss all of that as well. So largely that's what it is. So now, because we work with them as HR, because I'm speaking from the point of being a HR person and how we need to manage them, because whether you like it or not, if you're working in a unionized environment, you're going to have to be interacting with them almost every day or every time. So how do you maintain that relationship? Because you need to strike a balance. You don't want to be you're not going to be too firm, and you also don't want to be too easy, but that balance has to be there, and you need to know. And the thing is, once anytime they come, they want something, and it's really about them. So you need to know how to manage that relationship, and how to know, okay, I won't give you, what I'm going to give you has to also benefit the organization, and has to also benefit them. So that relationship, it's a very unique relationship. But here are just some of my tips and, things I think could help. Mutual respect, respect is earned. Let that respect be there. Don't be too jovial, up to the extreme where they don't even respect you anymore. And also don't be too firm where they can't come easily to meet you, because there's also the ego part. There's this feeling of, hey, we're union members, we must have our rights and everything. So let them be able to come to you with their problems. So don't be on the extreme of each side. You need to be able to strike a balance between it. So let there be mutual respect, and let there be trust. Trust is very essential for that relationship to really thrive, and for effective collaboration. And when I say trust, things like when they come and make a request, don't beat them around and say, oh, I'll get back to you, I'll get back to you. If you can do it, you let them know. Be open. And trust me, when I discover that when you're open, to them, to say, look, this is not, we won't be able to do this, we can do this, or we can't meet you where you're asking, but we can meet you halfway, or we can give you a little. When you have those conversations, I notice that they appreciate it more. So they appreciate when you're open, and then there's that trust, and you see that they will also come and tell you and let you know that, look, this is what our people are saying, and this is what do you think we should say. They will even come and ask for advice. So let them trust you. Don't tell them, I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to do this, and you eventually don't do it. They lose trust. So let it be, it's either I can do it or I cannot do it, and be open and plain. At the end of the day, the organization will only do what they can do. You know, you're not going to force the organization to do more what they cannot afford. It's always within what the organization can afford. So it's better to be open and just state it outrightly. And let them know that this is what you can do. Open communication. So that's also part of it too. So both employers and unions, you need to express their needs and concerns. If from the HR side you have some concerns, you let them know, look, I don't like the way I don't like the way you guys are trying to enable employees, or I don't like the way you're speaking, or I don't like, or even sometimes you can even get some of your work done through them. Oh, there's been a lot of absenteeism going on in the factory, for example, and and we're not finding it funny. Speak to your members. We will start, instilling this if we do not see. And trust me, they will go back and warn their members and let their members know. And when the members see, sometimes they see that their union, they're not going to get any backup from their union for any, wrong behavior. They will also sit up. So you can leverage on some of those partnerships from time to time. Collaborative efforts, like I said, mutual respect, all that. It's good to see them as partners. Don't see them as enemies or say, oh, these ones have come again. They only just want and want and want. They are fighting for their people they want. And remember, these people they are fighting for, they are your employees as well. So always see it as a partnership. What do we want to do for our people? They are your members, but they are my employees as well. So what should we do for our people? Look at it like that. You can ask them for opinion. Oh, do you want my opinion? Or what do you think? I want to do this for people. What do you guys think? Throw it open. That sort of enhances the relationship and makes it, sort of smooth. But let me tell you, sometimes even when the relationship is still going well, when push comes to shove and something happens and they want to lock their gate, sometimes they will still do. I'm just being as open as possible. That might still happen even when your relationship is great. But when the relationship is great, you are more at peace. There's more peace. There's more, you get your work done easily everywhere. It's much better when you have that relationship as against when the relationship is strained. So even sometimes if they have directives from national to say, oh, they are going on strike, they'll come and meet me and say, see, we're hearing word from national that there's going to be strike. Some of this NLC strike, we're hearing word that there's going to be strike and everything. Look, we would guard the gate. So let everybody still come to work. Work we go as usual. This is our farm. We don't want anything. So sometimes they are the ones that even come and bring that because of the relationship. They'll just say, look, the gates will be locked. We'll stand outside and let it seem as if this is happening or that. So there's that collaboration and there's that sort of alignment that we have. So how do you communicate with them? We all know how when we say effective communication and what we mean. Try and listen. Don't be absent-minded. When they bring their problems, listen to them. What problems do you have? Don't shove them away. That builds the relationship, because remember, it's important that your relationship with them is not strained. So like I said, you're not babying them. At the same time, you're not too firm. There's a balance, and you let them know, I can do this, I cannot do this, but keep that communication going from time to time. Listen to them. They'll come with problems, they'll come with issues. There's hardly any time they don't have one request or the other. Even after salary increase, they'll come and say, can management do more? Management should do more. People are suffering. There's this and that. People are hungry. We need more. Our people are asking for more. It's what the company can do. So you will still have those conversations. So you listen to them, let them pour their heart, and then you respond. So active listening is okay. Understand where they are coming from. Put yourself in their shoes, understand, but then respond, in the best way that you can, and be transparent in your communication. Like I said before, this is very, very key. I need to come up over and over again. That helps to build trust. That helps with your communication with them. Like I said, they are not enemies. They are your employees who are fighting for the interest of their members, who are your employees. So it's a partnership. We're all working. We have the same goal. We want our employees to thrive. They want their members, who are your employees, to thrive. So at the end of the day, same goal. But don't look at them as enemies. So you need to be transparent. If you say this is our farm, That's one term I normally use for them. I say, this is our farm, oh, guys. If you lock the gates, we will not eat, oh. Your people will be hungry, oh. It's our farm, we are the ones that will suffer. You see, they will not calm down. So, there's that. You just have to be open and transparent, and then timely information. If something is going to happen that can affect or trigger the way they will react or trigger something, share that information with them timely. You can be proactive enough to share ahead. I can give examples of some of the things we share. For example, sometimes, we have, because it's a factory, so sometimes the factory might run even during public holidays, and of course we'll pay overtime for throughout the public holiday. So there's a special overtime rate that is given if we have to work on a public holiday. So if we're going to work on a public holiday, I'll call them and let them know. I say, see, we might have to run the factory on a public holiday. We're running low. Customers are asking for certain stock, so we can't shut down. So please, members are going to come. Let members who can make it, let them be available. You have that conversation ahead of time. So as a HR person, you're working with your business partners are aware of the production plan, so you should also know ahead of time if the factory is going to run or not. So that's just like an example. So you share ahead. So it's not that they will hear later that you're saying, oh, they should come to work, and then they will be like, wow, our people come to work, we did not know factories over, our people should rest, they will come from that angle, even though these employees actually like the overtime that comes at that time because it's a higher rate and all of that. But it's just that information sharing. Oh, we're going to do this, so this is happening. So that just carrying them along and timely sharing of the information. Even sometimes when someone is going to be let go for whatever reason, whether for performance or something, and we know the person is a union member, we will share ahead of time to say, oh, look, this is what is happening, this is the case. When we have disciplinary cases, we let them bring their representatives to be part of the disciplinary program to observe, and they observe and they make comments. So that's the partnership that we're talking about in terms of working together and just having trying to collaborate with them. And then problem solving, so some of these things we've already mentioned, because we have the same goal. They are working for their members, we are working for our employees. It's the same people that we're all caring about. So there's nothing wrong in saying, come, there's a problem, how do we solve it, what do you think? That collaboration also helps. Engage them in the process. Carry them along. Once you carry them along, trust me, your life will be so much easier. Don't put them in isolation. You have issues, whatever it is. It could be something really minimum, but if you're working in a unionized environment, you carry them along. Some of them have really great ideas on what to do, so don't shove them out. Carry them along, engage them. Once they're carried along, they also like to be aware of what is happening so that nothing comes to them as a surprise, because how their people look at them is very important. Now I'm talking about the executives now, that in the branch that HR relates with, because how their people look at them is also very important to them in terms of their ego, in terms of how they are perceived, as leaders that are aware. So when you do that for them, you also help them as well, and that makes them even happier. That you've made them look good and giving them knowledge that they can work with. Of course, when I say share information, I'm sure as HR people, we know how much we can share and all of that. So look at it as a partnership building, foster a sense of partnership. Let that just be the mindset that drives, not one that comes with, oh, what are they? Why do I need to partner with them? Who are they selves? It's easier when you carry them along as against when you shove them to the side and don't take them important. Because like we said at the beginning, the impact of having your gate shut down it's more than the little time or the phone call that you'd have called that will enhance your relationship. That little phone call or that information you shared can save you all of the drama and all of the loss that you might have. Now, there's going to be negotiations. In our place, like I said, every 2 years, there are certain allowances. And this is, so for each industry, if you have union in your industry, there are particular procedures. So as HR people, you must know the procedure for negotiations or for the procedure for union interactions. There's a full handbook, for example, for food and beverage. So if you're in that category, if you're in that industry, you need to be able to, you need to have that procedure. So even the banks have, everybody has their procedure, and that procedure says what their limits are, what lines they should cross, what lines they shouldn't cross. So it also helps you. So sometimes if they're coming to speak on something, you say, no, but that's not for union, because there's still a lot of things that they shouldn't get involved with. There are things about welfare, yes. There are things about management decision, bonus, productivity bonus, and all of that. Performance generally is not within their purview. So you need to be able to know how to, you need to understand the procedure so that you then know, how to what to allow and what not to allow, and what to encourage and what not to encourage. So for us, for example, we have an allowances, I beg your pardon, we have allowances that are negotiated with the union, different allowances, child education allowance. There's also the what we do for burial support, if a staff goes for, if a staff has to leave, depart, what should be given to the family that has been left behind. Those sort of things are negotiated. Long service awards, for example, they are negotiated with the union, and that's in the procedural agreement. So there are times that those negotiations have to come up. So how do you then prepare for such negotiations? So first of all, you need to understand, you need to really go through all the details. What's the objective? So if I take long service award, what's the objective of this meeting I'm coming to have? You need to be sure, you need to have all the information, you need to prepare, you need to set those clear objectives and prepare an agenda so that it's clear, because they will come, and if you're not prepared, before you know it, you've left the focus of what you're negotiating, and they've taken you to, to where you don't know. They've carried you to where you don't know. So it's good you know what you're focusing on so that you stay on topic. You stay ready for that negotiation. You're prepared. So be clear what your objective is. And if they're taking you away, you can just simply say no. We're not discussing that today. We can look at that another time. Today we are here for this. So you stay on course, because at the end of the day, if they take you all over the place and you're not able to hold your meeting, you end up not reaching anything, and then you have to reschedule. So that whole time lost and gone. So that's in terms of preparation. Also, data too is also important, that you have relevant data. And relevant data could be, what are other people doing in the same industry? So if it's long service award, I'm coming to discuss with them, for example, what are my competitors doing? So that's why as HR people, you need to have a network, you need to have good network, particularly within your industry. So what are my people doing? What are people that are in the same industry with me? What are they doing? So you need to have that idea, so that also helps you. And even before you go into that meeting, you should have already agreed with management. That's what I do, or that's what we do in our place as well. So if it's long service award, I've done all the investigation. I know what people are doing. I will share. I know what my budget is, because at the end of the day, it has to be within what the company can afford. So I will, prepare all of that information and get approval, so that you even know what is the max that you can go, and what's the minimum, or what is the highest that you can do, so that when you're going into the meeting, you know that, oh, it's 400,000 I can do for 5 years, for example. I can't do more than this. So when you're negotiating, you know where your line will reach and what, how to get there. So it's very important that you get all of that before, during the preparation phase. You get all of that information, get managers buying, get management buying, get everything. So you're going in prepared. So discussions will come, parties, they will communicate their needs. They will come and say, oh, this is what they want to do. This is what they want to have. You also, you do. And then finally you reach an agreement. So that's just the way it goes from preparation. And sometimes the discussion could take months. It depends on how you're able to hold. And it also depends on the sort of relationship that you have. Where the relationship is strained, trust me, your negotiations could go over and on. They will drag it. They will say, okay, we're not ready today. Or they will come and say, okay, let's go back and get back to you. That get back to you, they might not be available again for one. Meanwhile, you have timelines. So discussion stage could really take a while. So there's a lot of, you need to know how to manage them so that you also can get your work and your result out of the way. And then finally, there's the agreement stage where at the end of the day, you finally reached an agreement, and then, something obviously must be signed. So let's go into the details of the three processes of the negotiation. So it's important for clarity. I think I mentioned this already so that we don't overflog because of time as well. So importance of clarity. So you're setting clear objectives. Everybody, you know what your focus is, you know what your goals are, you know what you want to achieve. You've got your management buy-in and all that. You have your priorities as well in terms of staying focused on the issue so that you don't deviate from why you are there. So it's very clear that you have your priorities, and then your decisions are made, or everything that you need to make a decision, you have everything cleared so that is in line and you have your desired outcome at the end of the day. In terms of gathering data that I mentioned, you need to carry out research. Is very important. For me, I prefer to work with companies within my industry so that is relatable. There's no need, if you're working in FMCG, you're going to gather what bank is doing. Yes, it might be good, but might not be relevant. It might be good data, but relevance is really more within the industry. So it's good to have all of that so that some people may already have concluded their negotiations, so you can find out, because it's fixed within the industry. This the negotiation period is fixed. So some companies might do earlier than yourself, so you can reach out and find out where they ended, because they also talk within themselves. So you also, within the employers, you should also talk within yourselves as well. And what are the industry standards? So you also need to know within your industry what is happening. You need to be informed, so that you also know. That would also prepare in gathering your data. Then you should be aware of their demand. So this is also a very tricky part. But if you have a good relationship with them, you can tell what they are looking for. So because if you can tell what they are looking for before you go into the negotiation, it makes it easier for you. So in your conversations, you need to know how you can bring that out and just find out. Just ask, so what are you guys really looking for? You can have, is what I call the meeting before the meeting. So within the ESCO, you will know, who are the key decision makers, usually the chairman, the secretary. Those are like the key people, and you can have a meeting with them before then. Say, guys, I understand that you're speaking for your people, but let me have an understanding. What are you guys really looking for? And you can tell them to list it, tell me what you're looking for. What are you going to ask for? What are your demands ahead of time? So that also helps you. So if they send those demands, it helps you in planning ahead of time, so that it's not at when you go to the meeting they now drop it. Well, they tell you ahead of time, but that's also based on the relationship that you have with them, that you can get that out, which is why that partnership and collaborative relationship helps. So they will let you know, oh, this is what we're looking at, this is what we're coming to ask for, this is what it is. And then even at that meeting before the meeting, like I call it, you can also let them know that, look, oh, guys, business, this one, yeah, we can't really you can't really go this way, or we can't go this way, we can't go this way, this is where we're going to stop. You don't necessarily have to say, for example, it's 400. You can say, oh, 350. So that's where all those negotiating skills that we learned with our mothers in the market, when they will price 500 naira plantain 20 naira, you have to bring out that skill. That skill has to come out during negotiation so that you will know when to stop, how to stop, and all of that. It's really, I saw a comment saying it's a different strength. It is really a different skill entirely, but it's interesting. It's interesting work if you have the patience. Patience is also very key. But yes, I agree with you in the comment section. I agree with you. So so you can have that meeting before that meeting, and it also helps a lot. Trust me, that really helps a lot. But again, it depends on relationship. So if you don't have a cordial relationship with them, or you've not been working together, it will be difficult for you to call them and say, guys, what are your demands? So these are where this is where that also helps. So how do you then conduct successful negotiation? So since you already have the objectives clear, it's easier for you. You know what you're going to. You have the roadmap. Hopefully you have their demands as well, so you know where they are coming from. So you know how, and you already have what management has said, is the peak. So you have all of that. So going into the meeting, it makes it really structured, and you have all the guiding and discussion points that you need to do. So just be sure that all the topics and critical issues around the matter and the subject that you're going into negotiation for, you have all those points and all of that. Ensure that nothing is overlooked, because you can't go out and sort of come out of there and then come back again to say, oh, we forgot to discuss something. It doesn't make you look good. So you need to really go in prepared, and then let your discussions be on track. Try and focus. Trust me, they will want sometimes move you away. It has happened to me when I just started negotiating. It happened. We went in, I can't remember the exact thing that we went in for, but we got there and they now said, hey, that we also want to mention that you have not done this for us. It was something that even before I joined the organization, they now reminded me of something that they said it in 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, that HR did not get back to them, that in fact, they need to close that before we even open this. That thing destabilized me. I was lost. I was confused. I was like, where is the? And I said, no, but so I don't know. They now said, no. There's an agreement that thing was supposed to have been done. In fact, we have to go and discuss that one before. That's how the meeting went to. That's how we didn't have any. And I was just like, where is this coming from? So that was the lack of preparation. That was the lack of preparation. So you need to, I had to now go back, and I now saw that what we were talking of was very unrelated. So they're obviously maybe trying to buy time or just trying to extend the conversation. So, but I lost that day, that whole day was lost. And before you get another date, because they like to all come together to have this negotiation. So, and that's another thing I didn't mention. Anytime you're speaking with union people, don't be alone. Never be alone, whether it's as long as it's something you're discussing that has to do with making a decision. If they're just coming to greet you, that's fine. But never be alone, because trust me, hey, the day they will quote, but Efe, that day I said, hey, you'll be alone. They will just, but we said it now, was it not? So never ever, you can never, and they also, when they are coming, they are never alone. So if you see, they will either move, either the chairman and secretary or chairman, secretary, they will not just come on their own when they want to have a discussion. So same thing, HR, you can't be. So you also, even if it's 3 people, whether the people are in IR or what, you talk, you need to come together and have this. So I'll take your questions. If you have questions, you can just drop them. We'll look at them. I can see some questions coming in, but I'm feeling like we should rush through, and then we'll now have see how we can talk about some of your questions. So please drop your questions, and we'll take them. So negotiation tactics, understanding different negotiation tactics can help you improve, like what I was saying, even though I was saying our mother's type of negotiation, but it's really very important that we understand, we know how to bring in this skill. So it's a skill that I think if you're in IR, you need to have, because it's very, very important. If you're managing industrial relations or you have interest in it, it's something that I think it's a skill that you cannot do without. So you need to understand different negotiation tactics. You need to understand how to how to confront or how to have the discussions, so that they are favorable. How to make offers, that's also a skill. So like I said, you already have management closing to say 400. You can't just come to the table and say, okay, guys, for this long service award for 5 years, we're pegging the gift at 400,000. That 400,000 is your peak. You can't, it will be a tough conversation. So you need to start, you need to agree before you go in where you will start. Within HR there, you guys need to know how you start. So whether you're coming with 150, then you come again, you can top up 152, 157, you'll be making your offer, like, no, you can't just come and just try and say 400, and that's your peak. It will be a difficult conversation for you. So because they will always have a counter offer, there will always be a counter offer that will come. So it's very important that you know how to make offer and and also important to know if it's a list of different things that you guys are discussing. If it's not one element, find out which one is more important to them and use that one to sort of hold as juice. and so you can say, oh, I know you guys are more interested in this. So for these other items, how about we don't increase these items and then focus on this? That's also a way. So you just need to find a way to make your offers and counter their own offers as well. Explore their interest behind position helps negotiators understand as well. So that's also their underlying motivation. So understand what is important to them. So you can use that also as a buy, to hold them to say, okay, if you know that this is what they have, you can now hold on to something for them. So these are just some tips that I think might help in terms of negotiation. But like I said, negotiation is a whole new, it's a skill that has to be learned. But I think I would say for me, it got better, even though, yes, I did some courses and had to sign up and do a lot and all that. But I think it got better with experience. So the more you're exposed to it, the more it becomes a bit easier. So even if you're not in if you work in an organization where there's union and you're not directly with IR, but you have interest in IR, you can ask to at least be in the meetings. The more you sit in the meetings, the more you're exposed to it. I think it helps a lot. So it's just thumb, like your thumb, your finger thumb. So there are no giveaways in negotiation. That's one thing. You cannot say you're giving away something. You must think about what you're presenting and be sure that what you're presenting is something that is beneficial to the people or to the organization. Don't just throw away offers, just like that. And help me help you. So let's go into the details. So there are no giveaways in negotiation. Like I said, you need to prioritize what your negotiable items are ahead of the meeting. You need to understand what's the highest priority, medium, low. So that's if you have like a list of things. If it's just one item you're negotiating, that's different. But if it's a lot of items, know what your highest priority is, what's more important, what is low, and what's not important. But even if you have some that are least priority, don't be tempted to say, okay, let me just give them. There's no giveaway when it comes to negotiations. There's always something. There's always something you can hold. Okay, guys, if we're going to do this, then we'll need to give that away. There's always something you need to hold because they do that too in their own negotiations. So give us this and we'll, so you too, you need to have something you're holding, while you are negotiating. Know what they want and make it seem like, okay, I know what you want. I want to give you something. So for me to give you this thing, this is what I can do so that I give you. So let them see that you're trying to. That's one way that I know that has worked. You let them in the negotiation, you let them see what's in it for them, and sell it in such a way that I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing it so that you guys will enjoy, you guys will benefit. So if we agree on this, it will help you. So sell what the benefit is to them so that it will help you. And you can sell your vision for the outcome of negotiation. This is what I want to do. When I do this, you guys will have this. So you should be able to sell what you're trying to do for them. So guys, if we use all the money for this, we don't know. This is just mid-year. I'm just giving an example now. You can say, oh, this is just June. We're having a negotiation now in June. We don't know what's going to happen rest of the year. If you're saying that we should do this large increase for this thing, what happens the rest of the year? Maybe I might want to do palliative, or we might want to do this or want to do this. Let's always have something we're keeping. You can't finish everything, so there's something that you have to sell to them for, let them see. So always have something in your pocket that you can use to hold to say, this is something. And of course, try and be flexible. You can't be rigid when you're going into negotiations with the union. You can't be rigid. So be flexible, which is again why you cannot start from your peak. You have to be flexible. And sometimes it might not be in your initial plan, but if you weigh the options and see that it's of no detriment to you, it's something therefore that you can consider. So that's where the flexibility comes in. You also need to understand yourself. If you know that you're not a strong negotiator, I will not advise that you lead the conversations. You can be part of the team, but you cannot lead the conversation. So it's very important that you understand yourself. If you're going in to lead the organization, know your strengths, know what it is you can lead and what you can't. It's very important because when they come and you're having those negotiations, they are very skilled in their negotiations and coming forth with their suggestions. So if you're not strong and you're not able to lead, they might push you, to the side and all of that, and it might not end well. So if you haven't led before, you probably might want to just be part of the team. You can observe, and all that. And even if you're going to lead, be sure of that you know yourself and know your strength, so that you apply your strengths in the negotiation and know what you can work with. And then make justifiable demands. You should be able to provide reasons. Like I said before, provide reasons why you want to give into their demand or why you want to sell something. Always have reasons. Don't just say, okay, we're doing this without any. Let them see reasons. Sell reason with what you're doing. It always helps in negotiation. This is why we're doing this. We're doing this. So they can see thought process. They can see that there was a thought that went to it. We're not just going somewhere to pluck money. Oh, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. So it's very, very important. I can see hot conversation going on in the chat room, whether we should take a pause or, okay, maybe I just finish. Okay, so, and then be curious, keep asking yourself, what don't I know? Which is also part of what you can get out from the meeting before the meeting that I mentioned before. Find out what is happening. You need to have people within the ESCO that are your guys. Let me put it that way. You need to have people that are your guys, within the ESCO. You need to have people that you're close with so that you can really understand what's happening. You need to really understand and then ask questions, find out, check from other industry, check, and you can ask directly as well. But it's very, very important that you get as much information from the team. That would also help you. And then when it comes to reaching an agreement, you finish your negotiation, you guys have reached an agreement. It's always very clear that everything is written out. The contract or the agreement is spelled out, and it's essential for both parties to see that they've written and both parties will sign, and that's what is binding. If it's not in the contract, they cannot come and hold you to it and say, oh, but we said, it's not what we said, it's what we signed, what we agreed. So at the end of each agreement, there should be no any agreement that you've had or discussion you had that is not signed, forget it. It will not work. You cannot refer to it and it will not hold water. So it's always better that it's signed. And if they come and say, oh, but the other time we agreed, where's the agreement? Where's the agreement? As far as we did not agree, you cannot hold me to it. But as long as there's an agreement, then that helps. And it's always very important that with union discussions, you have it signed and sealed. Never miss that part. Otherwise, your entire discussion was just a waste of time. So now, like I said, even with all of the beautiful relationships, communication, it's still possible that there will still be conflict or strife one way or the other, because sometimes, even though you have a very good relationship with the ESCO, they have pressure that they are dealing with from the members, because remember that the members are paying dues, so they always hold them to it. Some of them, their dues are as high as 8,000. Some of them, the dues they pay monthly to be part of the union, so they pay dues, so they demand a lot from the people. So sometimes I even do not envy them, because there's a lot of pressure on them as well. So I see where they come from sometimes when they're coming, because the people are putting them under pressure. So you might have a good relationship with them, but their people are not giving them, sleepless nights, and they're putting a lot of pressure on them, and they want to show their people that they are working. They need to show working to the people that, look, I'm not on management side, I'm on your side. Sometimes they know that, then they will not want to do all those their bars, those or your log gates, just to show, even though you have a good relationship. So sometimes those things happen, even with all the relationships. But the good thing is that with a positive relationship, you are still better off. Even if they come and make some of those noise, you are still better off, because they might even warn you ahead of time to say, see, we might make small noise, but don't worry, we will not lock the gate. We'll just make a bit of noise. I need to show my people. You'll get to that point where, they are even telling you ahead of time what they're about to do. That's what the good relationship does. That's what that good relationship does. If you don't have it at all, you're worse off. So it's still better, even though you might end up with this side of things, with the conflict, but it's still better that you're still on the better side if you have a good relationship. So where there's conflict, understand what caused the conflict. and try and resolve and just solve it quickly. Don't let it linger for too long, miscommunication, that's really one of the sources of conflict. Sometimes, they said, always have that one source of truth. Let them know who your IR contact person is and let them have that person as their contact for any information so that there's no different source of information coming elsewhere. Another thing that can cause conflict is unmet expectations. If you've given them your word and say you're going to do this and you don't do it, if you're not going to do it, carry them along and say, oh, I thought that by June we would have done it, but we're not ready. We will not be able to deliver. Carry them along. Send emails to your employees if it's something that needs to be communicated that way, but let them know because it could lead to frustration. You'll now feel, they've deceived us. You told us that you're going to do it. You didn't do it. Then, there's now strife. Everybody is raising shoulder, and then before you know, chaos. So carry them along with unmet expectations because those are some of the things that can cause conflict. Different priorities. So what's important to them at that time is not what's important to business at that time. So you need to be able to find a common ground to say, guys, I know you people want this, but look, this is where the business is now. This is what we need to focus. Remember, if we don't do this, this can happen, this can happen. So it's very important that you carry them along or you try and reach, at least a common ground where both parties can meet and resolve an issue. But largely the sources of conflict are really communication issues if something is not communicated properly. So that's also important that your IR person, whoever is the IR contact, has to be someone that communicates clearly. Let it not be that you just open his mouth, wow, like that. No, an IR person must know how to communicate. There are ways to communicate, certain things. If maybe you have a date for salary payment is 25th. In a unionized environment, that 25th, they're expecting that 25th. So if for any reason you're not going to meet up 25th, maybe it's going to come 26th or maybe platform issues, bank issues, or one of those things, you let them know, carry them along, or but if your IR person just comes and say, they're not paying salaries, or salaries might not come until, without even giving an expected timeline. So just open mouth and just da 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 da. They will now, whoever he tells will now pick that one up before everybody will not be agitated, staff will be, they will not be talk, and you don't want all that drama, So I'm just using that as an example, but it's very important that communication is clear and the person communicating knows how to communicate, even when the news is not good. The person knows how to communicate it, not just give it out like that. So in terms of how mediation happens with labor law, there's a step. So usually when there's a conflict within the branch, you can always either usually it's mediation. Mediation is just where there's a third party that can come, that will come and sort of stand in between yourself and the union to mediate and solve issues. So I have gotten to that point, where we had to let people go and we had to have mediate. So we escalated to labor, Ministry of Labor, and Ministry of Labor had to call both parties, at that time. So sometimes, so that's an example of a third party that can, stand as a mediator. So usually there's an escalation process. So if within the branch where you are, so if you're in a union, if your company is unionized, rather, if you have unionized employees, they usually will have a state secretariat. So as the IR person, you must know your state people. You should know after the state, the national, and then so you must know this. You must have contact in these two offices. So if you're working with your team and you see that you're not making headway, you've communicated, you've done everything, but you still have people who are, and you're still not making headway, you can escalate to the state and say, look, this thing is now beyond me. I don't want to take my matter outside, but your branch, you need to call them to order. They are not listening, even after I've done. But you do that when you're in the clear, not that, you've not done what you're supposed to do and then you're going to escalate. You only make things worse because they will always be on the side of their people. So be clear that, look, I've done everything I should do, but your branch members are causing too much problem for me. Then they can call them to order. So it rarely gets to that point, but if it has to, you escalate first to the state. Then after the state, you can then escalate to the national office to say, look, I'm not getting any progress from the state, and then escalate to national. But once you get to national office, they will always call the guys to order. That one always really solves it. And if you're having any issues, ensure that your own employer association, because that's your own union. That's our own union. I mean, I call them our own union. So for us, is AFBT. That's Association of Food Beverage Employers. So you need to still carry them along too. So you need to also be part of that, of the employer association now of your industry. So I will need to also escalate to them just to let them know that, oh, this issue is happening. Oh. So when you discuss with national, as long as national of your union, employees union office is carried along, your own national, which is the employers union, have to also be in that meeting so that you don't go alone. They've reported to their union, you to report to your own union. So union to union, they will all be there, and then you have that rounded body. And where it's required, you report to Ministry of Labor. Before it gets to this point, it's really that maybe things have really escalated. According to labor law, according to the procedure, rather, the trade union agreement, they shouldn't go on strike. Strike should not be their first course of action. They should first of all at least try and do mediation. But in Nigeria now, they don't they hardly follow those processes, even though it's laid down in the law. But typically, if there's a problem with the employer, you've got into national, they should go to Ministry of Labor first. Ministry of Labor will then intervene before they go into strike and all that. Strike is usually the last. But these days, they can just wake up. You arrive at work and bam, you can't enter your office. They've locked gates, which is really wrong, So in terms of conflict resolution, effective communication just has to be there. Proactive your communication. Those are just some of the things. Ensure you have a win-win solution. A harmonious work environment is also very important. Implementing implementing conflict resolution strategies. So how do you just ensure when you get to that point where there's a conflict and you need to resolve? Communication is very key. Be proactive with your communication. Look for what both of you can win. Try and solve. Sometimes you will have to bend, so that you can progress. You have to bend. We've had to bend sometimes, but not every time. But if you get to that extreme point, you might have to bend and have to go out of what you would have done. Now, this is also very important. So when you have a situation, it's good as if you work in a unionized environment, it's good that you have an emergency plan. I would recommend it. It has worked for me. And I would really recommend that you have if you do not have in place. So like I said, anything can happen. The people that they are managing might trigger them. You could just come to work and your gate is locked. What do you do at that point? Employees can't go into the company. Nobody can work. You need to have an emergency plan that you're always ready for. But as an IR person who is really in touch, you would know when there might be trouble. So before then, you need to already have started putting things in place, calling managers to say, look, this might happen. The employees might not agree to work. How do you work? Do you have people that you can use? Who are those that are not members of union? Can we get them to come to work? So you already have a plan of, what you're going to do if the gates are locked. People with laptops, with internet, do they have everything they need? Can they work from home? Is there an emergency site that we can all go to and work from there? Finance that needs to pay, is everything. So you have to have that plan per department. So we have like a robust plan that we just know, and if we go and that thing, you quickly activate. So where does the ESCO, where do they need to stay? There's a place already, so you just need to activate. Okay, you go from here, you work from here, all of that. So yes, they might be at the gate, but key work is still happening at the background because you have all of that in place. So you need to work with stakeholders for each department ahead of time and know how you can do. And this also works even with NLC, because it might not even be your own branch that is having issue or your own company. It might be, like the NLC strike that we had the last time was it for minimum wage or so? I think, yeah, for minimum wage, and they were for about 3 or 4 days or so, they said people shouldn't go to work and all. What happens at that point? You have to have a plan as a HR person. There must be an emergency plan that you might have. So at that point, because of the good relationship I have with my union team, we already agreed that they will still come to work, because typically they wouldn't come to work, but we have a plan, on how we manage it and how we just work around it. So yes, the strike will go on, but we just ensure within ourselves that work continues somehow. So as we plan for the future at all times. So it's very important you're conversant with labor laws. I was telling you at the beginning how sometimes they come and quote ILO. The last ILO conference that was done in Geneva, NLC president was there, TUC president was there. They attend these events, they attend these programs. They're very conversant with ILO laws. They hold meetings with their members. The labor law, they know it end to end, because they know how to quote and how to fight for the workers, for their members. So it's really important that you're evolving with what is happening. You know what's happening, whether in your industry, labor laws, you need to be abreast with, what's happening. Everything that has to be, you need to be compliant, what should be done, what shouldn't be done. You can never err on the side of process and compliance. As long as you're in line with what process and compliance is, you're always safe. So it's always safer that you're compliant. Once you're compliant, you're good to go. So you need to be on top of what you need to know. Effective engagement with union, labor law changes, because they are advocating for the rights of their workers. They're advocating based on law and based on what standard practice. So your engagement with them too should be from that angle as well. So you need to know the law for you to be able to engage them. So it's very important that we're abreast. So I just added this. This was just litigation that happened. This was within a company. So the outcome of a litigation and the provisions of the law. So we're aware that under the Trade Union Act, this was referring to the provisions of the Trade Dispute Act. There's it creates a mandatory requirement for trade union to first explore, like I mentioned, they need to explore settlements before they go on strike or anything. That has to be done with the Ministry of Labor and all that before they go on strike. However, in this case, Federal Government of Nigeria and ANO versus NLC, they went on strike without engaging the minister. But in the NICN, the judgment was delivered. This was in 2016, and it held that even though they didn't really, according to the Trade Act, they didn't involve the minister, but they weren't held. It didn't hold against them that they should have first of all engaged. So that strike was not referred to as illegal. So even though the Trade Dispute Act there, we just then need to be careful. It's just really about being, I think it's just really that relationship. As much as possible, you avoid getting to the point where, that happens, because at the end of the day, even though the act says they shouldn't go on strike, there's still a case that was heard that, sort of was okay for them to have gone on strike. So where do you then wonder, how do you strike the balance between them just doing anyhow in quote and all of that? But I think at the end of the day, it's really how do you just manage the situation, and how do you manage your relationship with your team in-house, so that it really doesn't get to that point and where there's they've had to go on strike and all that. So we've come to the end, and before we go into the questions I'm seeing in the chat, but in conclusion, really, okay, so maybe I should go through the questions, then we would conclude. Okay, I'm going to have to try and start. There's a lot of chat here. Let me try and go start from. Do you have an idea of what the minimum salary for HSC officers in mining are paid? No, I do not have an idea. And that was from me. I'm not so conversant with mining and industry. Okay. Just trying to go through all the questions. Yes, IR is different strength of HR. I totally agree. If the organization is confronted with empirical data, how do you deviate from paying their higher demands? During negotiation, does management engage in some lobbying? Does the union present their proposals before negotiations at all? Yes, they do. Like I said, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but you can ask for it. I think it's always better to ask for it. You can all the times I've asked for it, they've presented to me, and I think it's better that you know where they are coming from, because it helps you plan better. It helps you also get the approvals you need to get from management, so that there's that understanding and alignment before you go into the meeting. So yes, they do present their proposals, at least in my place, and I believe that should also happen in other places as well, that they present their proposal. So you can even formally ask for it. If they don't bring it, you can write to them to say, can you bring your proposal as we go into this, so that you can have that discussion. So I think it's very, very okay to ask for it. In terms of lobbying, I'm not so sure what you mean, but it's always safe not to, if I understand the lobbying that you're referring to. I mean, you can have, like I said, you have your people within the team, that you work with, that you're close to, that you can get information from, or that you can collaborate with, to have an idea of where their thoughts are, even outside the formal presentation, and that can really guide you. That can guide a lot. I think there are some organizations that do, but the thing is, once you start, it's difficult for you to stop. So sometimes it's better not to start at all, to go that route, because once you go that route for one, they're expecting that every single time you will then, have to. How do you manage union management relations? Do you give them some largesse different from end of year bonuses? In our own place, we do not give them anything different. They are first, because first of all, we see that they are first employees before they are union members. Without them being employees, they will not even be union ESCO in the first place. So they are first employees, and we expect that they even we've had to place a union ESCO on PIP. You don't do what you're supposed to do. You follow the normal process. You're first an employee, and before other things. So first, you're an employee, you do what you have to do as an employee, while you create time for the voluntary union work that you've volunteered yourself to do, but you're first an employee. But we do birthday gifts. We acknowledge that we do birthday gifts. So during their birthdays, we give them like vouchers, and we do hangouts with them, with the ESCOs. We do that, but outside of that, we don't like. In the beginning, you mentioned that every staff is at liberty to join unions, and this is backed by law. Is it every category of staff that are allowed to be in union? If no, where does the line stop? And can an organization ask that certain category of members be exempted? Maybe seniority. Oh yes, by all means. So our labor law is very old, not a bit. It's really old. So in the labor law context, is workers, and workers is really referred to as junior. Those are like the junior category. So it's the junior category of people that it is compulsory for. So in my organization, for example, once you join, you are automatically put in the junior union. Once you join, you're automatically a member of the junior union, because once it says that workers, for all workers, and the labor law as it was written, the workers it was referring to was that. Now, the senior staff is not compulsory. So there's a senior staff union. It's not compulsory. And the senior, so we have junior staff, senior staff, and managers. Managers are not part of union at all in my place. So yes, so that answers the question of you determining what. But I know some organizations where managers are part of the union. But in my place, once you become a manager, you have to leave the union. But senior staff is not compulsory for senior staff. So senior staff, you can join if you want to, but it's not compulsory, unlike the junior, where as you join, you're automatically placed in. So you have to then opt out if you don't want to be part. I hope that answers the question. Oh, I have a learned professional in the house, which is fantastic. Vivian Oko, and she's been posting. Oh, she really answered the question as well. So thank you for that. What's happening? Okay. I've worked in an organization where if you talk about union, you'll be fired. How do you tackle this since labor law is against organizations stopping their workers? So I don't know. It's really not right practice. You know that in Nigeria, some of our practices are still not. I mean, we do things against the law. Even employers, we do things that really not in line with law. By law, by labor law, it is wrong, to do that, and that's it is wrong to do that. Workers have the right to join a union, but I know that I don't think we're there yet. Like improved countries where you follow the law, and they might come and you shut your company down if that happens. So um it shouldn't be, but as long as, but there are some organizations where there's no union formed at all. Where there's no union formed at all, then that's fine, you progress, as this. But if it will be difficult if the industry has a very strong union, like oil and gas, like Pegasus that Vivian had posted about, or even in my industry, which is food and beverage, unionism is still very strong. So if your company is in that industry and your company doesn't have union, very soon they will get to know and they will come and picket. They will come and stand there and insist that a union should be formed, in that place. But where the industry is not so strong, then it's easier. I know that initially, years back, the banking space used to be heavy, but somewhat I think it has greatly reduced. I don't think the banking is as strongly unionized as it used to be before. But previously, you have a freedom of association. Oh yes, definitely. You can, like I said, you can opt out, for those that have to join, you can opt out if you want to. You should always have informants that will relate with your union speaker. Yes, very important that you have people that are close to you giving you information. That changes the game for you. In fact, you'll be like a super HR person if you have that. There's no union because you can't have it in the company. So okay, so I think some of the questions are already answered by fellow colleagues, which is good. I said it here that we'll be learning from each other. So that really has been achieved. Uh, do you negotiate based on research outputs or based on profit declared? So it's a mixture of both. You need to put both together. You need to when you're putting everything together before you negotiate. Like I said, you can't negotiate more than what the business can afford. It must be what the business can afford. So you need to have that in mind. If the business cannot afford, and they can't choke you. This is what we can afford. This is what we can afford, and that's it. So you take research at the same time. You also look at the affordability of the company. So both ways go together. Are HR staff meant to be part of union? I've heard of some companies where they do, and I would really like to know how they do it. But with us, we're not, because it's conflict. For me, it's be conflicted. It's be conflict of interest, because you're in the middle of both employees and management. You're privy to what management has decided to do. You're privy to discussions that you can't even come out and tell the union in full. And then you're also part of the union. So for me, it's a bit conflicted. I've heard of some HR staff that are part, but I really wonder how they do it. I really love to learn how they cope with it. But for me I think it to be conflicted. Despite the fact that female HR managers are more than male counterparts in industries, it's like greater companies prefer male HRMs to handle HR department of unionized companies. Do you agree? No, I don't agree. I don't think it's a matter of gender. It's just really about competency. I even think that women are better with managing union, because I think I noticed, well, this is my perception. I noticed that, as you're engaging, I think there are more, I don't want to use the word calmer, but that's the word that's coming to mind. But I think they are more relaxed when I lead negotiations as at when it's a male counterpart that's leading, because there's the ego thing, you know. But with a woman, they are more. I noticed that I might be wrong, but maybe I'm just a good negotiator. Don't mind me. But I don't think it's really about gender. I don't think it's really about gender at all. It's competency. You know, you're competent to lead, you lead. You know, it's really not about gender. Okay, banking sector is 0. Okay, say most bank will threaten your life. You don't reach to threaten life. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. Life threatening. Okay, the old generation banks, yeah, because they used to have old banks. Yeah, conflict of interest when HR. I totally agree. You know, because when we discuss, then you go back and go and tell the union, I see what they are doing. It would be. It will be tough. Choma, you can unmute yourself. I see your hand raised. I think we've answered all the questions.
Okay, thank you, Ma. Good evening.
Much. Okay.
Okay, Ma, please, my question is, during a negotiation with union or a collective bargaining, is it okay to grant requests for where union members want a request for a review, maybe a benefit just to themselves as the union ESCOs? Is it advisable to grant them that request, or let it be as whatever you ask for on behalf of workers, it will be the same for everybody, both workers and union representatives is the same? You know, we're not going to shift grounds to say, okay, because you are the ESCOs, you should take this.
Yeah, so they are coming as representatives of their people, not coming for themselves. If they are coming to ask for increase for themselves alone, then those people, their corruption pass the normal corruption we they see for Nigeria. So no, whatever they are coming for is coming for the people. So whatever you're applying the same rates, you know. So if they are in grade 1, whatever you've agreed to do to grade 1, all of them, including ESCOs in grade 1, will receive. So if you are fighting for grade 3s, you're fighting for a company, whatever increase you are applying to each level and each employee, wherever they fall, it will touch them the same way it's touching other people. Nothing, they don't come, you know. But like I said, sometimes they will come to say they are asking on behalf of their people, but when you dig deep, you see that it's probably affecting them more. That's why they are coming and they are making it sound like it's the people that sent them. So that's also where your HRBPs know what's happening on the ground, and then you can tell, is it really the voice of the people, or is it really your voice? So that you know whether it's something you want to look into or want to take, or you know, you don't really waste your time. Sometimes they come with an agenda and say it's the people saying, but it's really not the people, it's them that are saying. But when you dig deep, you then know, oh, this is not the people saying, and then you know whether to put effort in it, or you know, and all that. But no, we don't do any selective ESCO. They are representatives of their people, and it's for the people that they should come for, not otherwise.
Thank you so much, Ma.
All right, thank you.
And that's, sorry, Ma, please, one more. As HR, is it okay to silently or underground discourage people from joining union? Because I know that the charges that union that get deducted from staff salaries for union dues can be unfriendly to
So
employees.
that can be a very huge cause of conflict if they find out that you are that a HR person advised employees not to join. That can be a major cause of conflict, and you don't want that. They thrive by the numbers of people that are in their group. You know, they thrive by that. So if you take from their food, they will come for you. You know, the more number of people, the more dues they have to collect. So let it not come. HR should not, you know, stand in the way or say anything about that. Employees are adults. They can opt out anytime they want to opt out. If you want to opt out, but not HR writing or telling you to no, HR shouldn't do that. It will cause conflict.
Thank you, Ma. That's all from me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Hear me? So
thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much, Efe. This has been excellent, prolific. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you know how we end our classes. Please, let's get some appreciation. We can all unmute now and say thank you. No more questions.
Thank
No more
you,
contributions.
Efrain.
Just
Very
gratitude.
insightful session.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so I'll call the union.
Thank you.
I'm the chairman of the Association of Grateful Men.
Thank you very much. It
Thank
was a very
you.
fantastic
Thank
session.
you. Thank you.
I dropped a question to see if we can get your LinkedIn profile. I don't know if that is possible.
Okay, yes.
Huh?
Solid,
Let me.
And they can drop it on the WhatsApp group.
solidarity forever.
Okay, so maybe I'll share with Yemi, right? The link, right?
Yes, it can be dropped on the WhatsApp group.